Well, the federal government has given the green light for the Crawford Nickel Project in northern Ontario as part of Ottawa's efforts to fast-track major projects in this country. In her statement, Environment Minister Julie DeBruzen says the potential environmental effects are justified when taking into account the benefits the project will provide. It's an open-pit nickel cobalt mine and on-site metal mill about 40 kilometers north of Timmins, Ontario. The project is expected to attract $5 billion in investment and could create.
One decision in Canada could shake up the global battery industry. A giant nickel project is set to become one of North America's biggest mines, creating thousands of jobs and billions in value. The real surprise isn't the size of the mine, it's what this could mean for the countries fighting to control the future of clean energy. Ottawa approved the Crawford Nickel Project near Timmins, Ontario, a mine projected to add roughly $70 billion to Canada's economy over its lifetime and support approximately 185,000 person-years of employment. It will be one of the world's largest nickel sulphide projects. It carries the largest Indigenous investment in the history of Canadian critical minerals. And it is the first mining approval issued under Canada's amended environmental assessment law since 2019. Quietly, methodically, Canada just made its move to control the metal that powers the modern world. The scale of the approval is documented across every dimension. The federal government confirmed the project will draw in $5 billion in investment and create 5,000 jobs during construction, with another 1,300 jobs once the mine is fully operational. Construction is set to begin in 2027, with production expected by 2029. The mine is located in the Timmins Nickel District in northeastern Ontario, an open-pit nickel-cobalt operation approximately 42 kilometers north of Timmins. CEO Mark Selby projects the $70 billion GDP contribution over the project's life, a figure that reflects not just the value of the extracted metal, but the downstream economic activity the mine anchors. The strategic timing is what elevates this from a mining story to a national economic one. Crawford was one of the special projects fast-tracked in November 2025 by the federal government as part of its response to the trade war launched by the United States. When Washington began imposing tariffs and Canada moved to reduce its dependence on the American market, accelerating critical mineral projects became a component of that strategy. Crawford is one of several projects, including 3 critical mineral extraction projects, a nickel mine in Ontario, and a transmission line in northern British Columbia, that Ottawa prioritized to strengthen Canada's position in the supply chains that matter most to the modern economy. And if you want the real story behind how Canada is still holding its ground through tariffs, wars, and hard times, hit join below to join the membership for exclusive documentaries you won't see anywhere else about Canada's progress and rise through uncertainty. The approval itself set a regulatory precedent. Crawford marks the first mining approval issued under Canada's Amended Impact Assessment Act since 2019, establishing how major natural resource projects will advance through Canada's modern regulatory process. Canada has long been criticized for taking far too long to approve major resource projects, bogging companies down in red tape, especially where overlapping provincial and federal permits are required. Natural Resources Minister Tim Hodgson framed the decision directly. The approval, he said, is a testament to the government's commitment to getting projects approved and streamlining the permitting processes. For a country that has watched major projects stall for a decade or more, a nickel mine cleared through federal assessment is a signal that the regulatory environment has changed. The speed at which Canada Nickel advanced the project underscores that shift. Selby stated the company completed the key federal permit in just 4 years and moved Crawford from its 5th drill hole through a feasibility study to this milestone in under 7 years, substantially faster than the timelines that have historically plagued Canadian mining development. Today's decision recognizes the strategic importance of responsibly developing Canada's critical mineral resources in partnership with all levels of government and Indigenous nations, while maintaining rigorous environmental standards, Selby said. The Indigenous partnership at the heart of the project is a defining feature. In 2024, the Taykwa-Tagamo Nation announced a $20 million equity investment into Canada Nickel, the largest known investment to date by an Indigenous community into a Canadian critical minerals project. That investment gives the First Nation a direct ownership stake in the mine, rather than a consultation role or a royalty arrangement. It mirrors the equity ownership model now defining Canada's major resource projects: the Haisla Nation's majority stake in Cedar LNG, the Niska'a Nation's co-development of Sealisms, and the Stonlisek 8 Alliance's stake in the Enbridge Sunrise expansion. Canada Nickel has also signed agreements with 3 Northern Ontario First Nations for the Crawford project. What Crawford will actually produce explains why governments and manufacturers are paying attention. The mine will supply chromium and nickel sulphide in support of critical supply chains across defense, aerospace, stainless steel, electric vehicle batteries, and advanced manufacturing. Nickel is a core input for the lithium-ion batteries that power electric vehicles, and demand is rising as the global auto industry electrifies. To be designated a critical mineral, an element must be important to the economy and national security, and face the risk of global supply disruption, a definition nickel meets on every count. Crawford is designed to produce low-carbon nickel while incorporating proprietary carbon mineralization technology capable of permanently storing carbon dioxide, giving its output an environmental profile that battery and automotive buyers increasingly require. The financing package reflects the strategic weight both government and industry place on the project. Crawford's capital cost has been estimated at approximately US $2.5 billion. The company already has significant tentative funding in place: US $500 million in debt from Export Development Canada, another US $500 million from a Canadian government financing agency, roughly US $600 million in tax credits tied to critical mineral development and carbon capture, and additional international interest. Samsung SDI of South Korea holds an option to purchase 10% of Crawford for US $100 million, a direct link between the Ontario mine and the Asian battery manufacturing supply chain. That combination of Canadian government financing and international offtake interest is exactly the structure that converts a mineral deposit into a functioning piece of the global battery economy. The global market context makes Canada's timing strategic. Over the past few years, global overproduction of nickel, driven by Indonesia, has put severe pressure on Western producers. Indonesian nickel, much of it processed with Chinese capital and coal-powered energy, has flooded the market and depressed prices. Crawford's low-carbon nickel, produced under rigorous Canadian environmental standards and backed by government financing, positions Canada to supply the segment of the market that Western automakers and defense manufacturers need nickel with a verifiable, low-emission, non-Chinese supply chain. As countries race to secure critical mineral supplies independent of Chinese-controlled processing, Canadian nickel produced with carbon capture technology occupies a category that Indonesian overproduction cannot fill. The Impact Assessment Agency of Canada captured the project's national significance in its approval statement. The project will serve as an anchor of Canada's global leadership in clean industrial materials and is expected to attract $5 billion in investment and could create 4,000 new careers, securing Canada's place at the forefront of the clean economy, the agency said. The Minister of Environment, Climate Change and Nature determined that the potential effects within federal jurisdiction are justified when taking into account the benefits the project provides. The regulatory language confirming that Ottawa weighed environmental considerations against the economic and strategic value and concluded the mine should proceed. The approval came with environmental conditions attached. The decision statement includes protocols requiring the company to identify opportunities for Indigenous groups to participate in the salvage and relocation of fish, including potential traditional use of salvaged fish, one of the conditions attached to protect the environment while allowing development to advance.